Hello, people. I'm Tyler Felix. This is Past the Parsley. I hope you all are having a wonderful week. In this podcast, it's a pretty stacked podcast here. We got some news about the Jones and Francis fight. I will get to that first. Then after that, I'm going to give my bets for the fight this weekend. Then I'm going to break down that card and then talk about the Bellator card and also ONE FC. It's a lot of shit to fucking talk about, right? So let's start off with the Jones thing first. So last week I said that it seems like the Jones fight is dead in the water. And after that, it was literally like the day of that I posted that podcast. There was a leak that the UFC offered Francis a fight versus Derek Lewis in June. So that means that I got that shit right. So now Francis turned that fight down because of the date, right? It's way too close. The man just won the belt. I think he just wants a little time off, right? Because if he has to fight in June, that means that he needs to go to camp like right now. So, the man just won the fucking title, so I can see why. So they're probably going to book Francis probably in August, September, somewhere near that time. And this can mean multiple things. Now, this means for certain that the UFC is looking towards Derek Lewis, not really Jones, right? But Francis has came out and said he went on Hotboxing, which is Mike Tyson's podcast, and he said that he doesn't blame Jones, that he would do the same thing. Like if he was in Jones's spot, that he could definitely see why he's asking for a bigger paycheck, and he doesn't hold anything against Jon for wanting that, right? But then what he did say is that is the fight that he wants most. That he wants that Jones fight the most. Now, and then Jones came out today and he did an interview, I think it was like TMZ or some shit like that. But Jones pretty much said that he thinks that this fight will happen. But if you read more into what he said, I will just read the quote here. I think that they will eventually do the right thing, and I think this is one of the greatest fights of our generation. And it would be really sad if it weren't to happen, and I believe that it will happen. So that is a Jon Jones quote, but really that means nothing. Like that means nothing. It's just like having hope. It's like, I feel like the UFC has already moved on from this Jones fight, and the only way that this fight is going to happen is if Jon Jones comes down. Because I know that they will offer more cash, right? Like, I don't think they have a problem paying him more, but he's asking for more than double. He's asking for double his pay, which is kind of, with all the shit that Jon has done, where just last year, like the drunk driving thing, shooting a gun, it's like, it just doesn't really make sense for them to double his fucking pay. So if Jones comes down from that, I feel like they would happily pay him somewhere in that $12 million range. And whether Jones wants that, I'm not sure, but I feel like that's probably that they're willing to go to that point. So if Jones comes down and he accepts that, then I think that this fight can definitely happen. But I don't know if Jones will buy that quote where he's saying that they should do what's right. And it's like, I don't know, man. Because it's like Jones just acts like he has all of this leverage, but he doesn't. Literally the only leverage. Jon Jones has one thread of fucking leverage, and that's that he won't fight. where I think the UFC doesn't really care. It's like, we have Francis, we have Connor still, right? Like we have Izzy, like we have massive stars. Like we don't need to double your pay, right? Because one, he has no belt because he gave it up first. Jon has already gained weight, right? So he needs to fight heavyweight. Like, he's not going to drop back down with the size that he's put on. So Jon put himself in this corner where he has zero leverage, where the only leverage he has is that he won't fight. And in the UFC's eyes, that's nothing. Like, they don't really care, because they are obliged by contract to offer him fights at that contracted amount for that fight, right? So on their side, they don't have to do anything, really. Like, they just need to offer him that fight, and then if he turns it down, then by the terms of that contract, that is essentially Jones forfeiting his opportunity, right? So all they have to do is offer him 3 fights per year, and then that's it. That's the only thing that, like, they need to, like, do. Like, they don't need to come up, like, which I think they will, but nothing crazy. And they really don't need to do anything, because Francis is a massive star without fighting Jones. So granted, this is the fight that everybody wants, including me, including Dana White, right? This is the fight that everybody wants. But it needs to make sense, where the UFC doubling his pay, where I feel like they're just like, what if we double his pay, right? And then he beats Francis, and then now he's the fucking champion, and then now he does some other crazy shit, and then now we fucking have to strip him, right? I feel like that's also what they're thinking too. So it's like I feel like everybody wants to make this fight, but the distance between Jones and what the UFC wants seems to be too great currently. So what it seems like they're going to do, regardless of what Francis and Jones said, because really it doesn't matter, because it's like, you can be hopeful. Like, I mean, you could say that you want this fight, but if you don't sign that contract, I mean, it really doesn't mean shit. And it seems like Dana hasn't budged much. It seems as though the UFC has, like, not budged. And then it seems like Jones's only tactic now is to guilt trip them, right? And to try to get the UFC fans against Dana for not paying him, which I think that's what he's trying to do with this statement, saying that, oh, I think this, like, fight's on. So now he's trying to flip this to, no, this is not on me, this is on them. So I want this fight, but it's on them. That's all that this statement is. I don't think the fight is any closer to happening. I just think this is just wordplay by Jones, just to try to, as I said, get the fans on his side, so that he can try to use that little bit of fucking leverage, because this man has no leverage. So he's trying to create leverage by exactly that. So anyways, do I think that this fight will happen? Yes. Do I think that this will be Francis's next fight? No, I don't. I think the UFC is going to move forward with Francis against Derek Lewis. And then if Francis wins, because Derek Lewis is a beast, and the only way that I see Francis losing is getting knocked out, right? And Derek has that power, right? He has that capability. I mean, he's literally knocked guys out at the last second of the fight. Like, I mean, this man has insane power from the very start to the very end, which their first fight didn't really reflect both of their skills. So I think for Francis, this could be a very dangerous guy, because if Francis doesn't take him seriously, he could get fucking caught and he could get flatlined. So anyways, if Francis could get through Derek, then I think with Jones sitting out for all this time and the UFC holding firm, I feel like Jones will probably come down and then they'll go a little up and then eventually they'll make this fight happen. But I feel like right now it's probably not going to, because of how everything has been handled and how everything is so public. And if there's anything that fucking Dana White hates, it's when all this shit becomes public, right? So I think for now they'll probably move on. And then there was talk of either Derek or Stipe next, but I really don't see Stipe being the next guy. I feel like Dana has made it pretty clear that it's either Jon Jones or it's Derek Lewis. So with the Jon Jones fight, it seems like it's probably gone now. It's almost certain that Derek Lewis gets that next shot, and what I would have to guess is probably August. Yeah, so I don't know, because like I would like to see that fight, right? Jones, because Jones is really good, and I think Francis would honestly beat him, right? I think Jones would obviously try to wrestle fuck him, which that could definitely work, because in the first Stipe fight, Francis couldn't stop a takedown for shit, and then once he was on his back, he couldn't get up. And then in this last fight, he showed that he could stuff that fucking takedown now. But he hasn't shown that he could get back up. And then that's a lot harder skill to learn. It's easier to learn how to stuff a takedown than it is to get back up, right? So I definitely could see Jones taking him down and then grinding him out. But Francis just needs one punch. And if Jones doesn't get that takedown, I think on the feet, Jones is kind of fucked, man, because Jones has looked very slow. He's looked very stiff. It seems like his age or lack of steroid use. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Like, it could be both, but his striking has really, really fell off. It really fell off. But his wrestling, I mean, that's a skill that, that really... that's the last skill to, fall off, is amazing wrestling, which that's what Jones has. Jon Jones could potentially be the best wrestler in the entire fucking UFC. I mean, he out-wrestled DC. I mean, if you can do that, you're one of the greatest wrestlers, if not the fucking greatest wrestler. So it's an interesting fight, and I would really like to see it happen, but unfortunately it seems like it's not going to at this moment. And I feel like there's really no blame here, because Jones, well, it's weird. I don't think he's in the right for what he's asking for, but I could completely see why he's doing it, right? Because at the end of the day, these guys are prize fighters, right? And the first word in that phrase is very important. They are prize fighters. They fight for money, and they want to make the most money possible every time that they fight. So I don't necessarily blame Jon for doing that, but the way that he went about it was kind of just, I don't know. It was the worst way possible. The worst way possible. And I feel like Jon Jones blew this fucking fight just by the way that he was just acting. But the whole fucking Twitter rants and all that shit, man, that if, like, I was his fucking agent, man, I would grab his phone out of his hand and fucking launch it into a fucking river, man. Like, oh my god, I'm sure he was just getting calls like, Jon, please stop. Could you please just shut the fuck up for a couple days so we could work out this fucking deal? But he didn't, and I feel like he fucked himself, and then in turn he fucked us. He fucked the fans, because now we're kind of robbed of this fight. And if Francis loses to Derek, then there like goes that fight. Well, there goes all that hype. I feel like if Francis loses, they'll probably still do Jones versus Francis. But but then all that hype is gone, right? All that esteem is gone. So yeah, so I feel like they'll eventually get it done. But eventually is like not now, not in the foreseeable future. So anyways, I've been talking about this Jones Francis fight for the last 3 fucking weeks. So I should probably move on to something else like this point, but it's like each day some new shit fucking comes out. But it's new shit, quote unquote, but it's not really. I feel like from the start they've been keen that they don't want to pay Jones, and that if he doesn't accept the offer that they have, they're just going to move on. And that message, it seems like it's been clear this whole time, and then the events that unfolded are just proving that true. So anyways, let's see. What should I talk about first? I'll talk about actually ONE FC, because Demetrius Johnson had the first real loss at fucking flyweight, man. I mean, he got knocked out, and it was a brutal knockout. Adriano Moraes, that fucking dude looked really good. Like the first round was a little slow. As far as striking, DJ was kind of controlling it on like the feet, but Adriano wasn't really throwing anything, man. And then he took him down. Then he kind of grinded him for the like rest of that round. But then in round 2, he kind of wobbled him. I think it was with a lead hook, and he kind of wobbled him like a little bit, and then he stepped in with an uppercut and dropped fucking DJ, right? Rocked him bad. And then as DJ was kind of curled up on the fence trying to get back up, he blasted him with a knee and knocked him out cold. And that was it. That was insane. And I feel like this fight goes to show why those knees should be legal. Like there's a lot of people that think that they shouldn't be, but they should be legal, because that is a fight, people. If you fall on your knees like that, and it's a street fight, right? They're going to kick you in the fucking head. They're going to knee you in the fucking head, because that's the most effective strike. But it's very brutal. It definitely looks, as far as visually, man, when a guy is on the ground and he gets kneed or kicked in the fucking head, those are definitely the most brutal looking knockouts. So I feel like that's partly why they're banned. But Adriano, man, he fucking threw that knee from the depths of South America, man. I mean, and blasted DJ, which the press asked him like after the fight, because he talked about in the lead up to this fight about how he loved the rules, and that you can knee to the head and all this stuff. And then they got asked, well, do you think that like these rules are like good now that you got knocked out by a knee to the fucking head? And of course he like said, yeah, like of course they're fucking good. Like I got rocked. I got caught, where in another league I wouldn't have, which that's not really fair, because in that position that he had, that was a fight ending position, where in the fucking UFC or Bellator, he probably would have been able to just kind of sit there and then kind of stall, which I don't think should necessarily be right. Which Dia, like MJ, he brought up a good like point too. He said that I was rocked. You just kneed me in the fucking head. Like I went out, and then I didn't have to take more fucking damage. Where if it was the other way, that that he would fucking have to hit him with like 100 punches, like before like the fight got stopped. So that fight was surprising, and to be honest, man, I really hated seeing him lose, man, because especially in this sport, I just love seeing people be great, right? I just wish that fucking DJ would just never lose and just ride off into to the sunset. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I think he will definitely bounce back. I mean, he was looking good. Like, it's not like he was looking slow or looking anything like that. And one thing that so before this fight, right, I thought that it was at bantamweight and that they weighed in at 135 pounds, and yeah, it was saying flyweight. So then I was confused because I could have sworn that they weighed in at fucking bantamweight. But anyways, and then so when this fight happened, I was looking for their weights, like the tail of the tape, and when they say them, when they're in the cage and they're like, oh, fighting on the red corner, but they didn't list their fucking weights, which is weird. I've never seen a fight league ever do that, not list weights, and I feel like it's because ONE FC says that it's flyweight, but it's a bantamweight fight. And I'm not certain of that, but it seems like that's what it is, because I could have sworn that ONE FC's bantamweight class, their flyweight class is 135. It's not 125, which is why DJ has looked so small. I mean, all of these guys that he's fighting are a lot bigger. And there's no way that they're straight up flyweights. I mean, I could be wrong here, but it seems like these are bantamweights and he's fighting bantamweights. But so that was definitely the biggest take that I got from that fight, is that DJ's a lot smaller than Adriano. But anyways, I think he will bounce back. The way he was talking, it didn't seem like he was thinking about stopping or anything like that. And he was pretty graceful in the loss too, which I can see why. I mean, the man has barely lost. He won something 20 out of his last 21 fights or some shit like that. So I could definitely see why he's so graceful. But yeah, so I am looking forward to see him bounce back. He'll probably take a few months off and probably fight in 8 months or something like that. And hopefully ONE won't do the bullshit that they did before and have him fight 4 times before he gets that was the weirdest thing, right? That leading up to this fight, ONE FC was calling him the greatest fighter ever, right? They were calling DJ the GOAT. And in all the press things and their tweets, they were just like, oh, the GOAT fights, blah, blah, blah. So it's just you're referencing that he's one of the greatest fighters ever. You're saying that he's the greatest fighter ever. And yet you don't give this guy a title shot until his 4th fucking fight. It's what? That's stupid. And I hope they don't do that twice. I hope they just give him a fight or maybe 2 fights and then he's right back at that shot, because Adriano, before he caught him, I mean, he the man barely threw any punches, man. So it's not like he was looking really great. I mean, DJ just got caught, and I feel like the size advantage really showed. But anyways, in the co-main was I don't know how to say his name, Yuri Lapicus, but he fought Eddie Alvarez, and this was one of the weirdest stoppages ever. because Eddie was punching him in the side of the head, right? Clearly in the side. And they were kind of in a weird spot where Yuri was kind of sitting up in like a crunch type thing, and then Eddie was, I think it was in half guard, but it was just kind of like a weird spot where they were both kind of sitting straight up. And then as they were doing that, Eddie was just punching him in the side of the head. And then this guy turns his head, and that the only thing that's exposed is the back of his fucking head. And then Eddie literally hit him once in the fucking back of the head. And then the ref, and then Yuri flopped back, was just like, oh, my head. And then, like, the ref was like, stop. Where it was very strange because, you know, Yuri, I didn't know him before this fight, but I looked in, like, to him quickly. And, I mean, this was the second fight that he's lost, but he's, like, 13 and like, 2. But, I mean, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but that was a very strange foul. And don't know, like, I just want to word this right because I don't want to, you know, really just shit on fucking guys. But it seems like he wasn't there to fight, and he used that as in out because he was getting hit in the side of the fucking head. They got hit one shot to the back of the head, like a 2-inch punch, which granted, I'm sure that that shit hurt, but for the referee to say that was because of that one strike is kind of ridiculous. It's like that one strike had no determining that if he was hurt. I'm not saying that he wasn't hurt because he could very well be, but if he was hurt, it was from those previous punches. It was not the punch to the back of the head. And I mean, fucking Yuri, dude, he looked like a fucking soccer player, man. I mean, he was just on the fucking ground. Oh. Which, granted, I'm not a fighter, and I don't want to diss this guy, but that dude should get a fucking Oscar. That's all I'm fucking saying. Where Eddie, like, after said that, oh, you know, he was like near tears. He was just like, all I care is that he's safe and that he's okay. That's the only thing that I want to know. And it's like, Eddie, he's fucking fine, buddy. That fucking dude was flopping. That was a flop. I mean, like, what the fuck was that? That was so weird. It was just weird. Yeah, it was so weird. And then, like, for the ref to just stop it like that, it's like, because technically, right, if I'm punching you and then you turn the back of your head, then I punch you once and then I fix that and then I keep on punching you to the side, that is not an illegal strike because you turned your fucking head. But it's kind of gray, right? Because it depends how long it was since he turned his, like, head. And it was a good, like, 2 seconds, but I don't know. It's just fucking weird because it was just fucking weird, man. It was weird. And I think that guy didn't really want to continue, so he just took that out. And I'm not saying he wasn't hurt because he could have very well been hurt, but I know for certain that it wasn't that little strike to the fucking back of the head that, like, hurt him. It was the fucking mollywop and that fucking Eddie was fucking putting on. So it's just it was like just like a weird fight. But that was ONE FC. Oh, and then I read that it was tape delay. Sorry, just had to burp there. But that's what I read before this like fight, and then I went on like a tiny rant about how that's dumb as fuck. How if you want to break in like to this market, you need to have live fights, for primetime here. And then come to find out, MMA Junkie is just a bunch of fucking idiots, and they just put that down, and then it wasn't. Like, it was completely live. So, like, I felt stupid because I got up at 7 a.m. and then I was trying to find a fucking stream, and I was like, bro, why is there no streams? And it's like, oh, because it's going to be live at 10. It's not a tape delay at fucking 10. MMA Junkie, man, they have fallen off a fucking cliff, man. That site is kind of dog shit now. They get stuff wrong all the fucking time. But anyways, so yeah, so the fights will be live at 10 here, which I think is great. It was upsetting that their opening fight was the Eddie fight, and there was such a weird ending. And on top of that, when he was in the cage, they were trying to talk with him, and something happened, but Eddie couldn't hear them. So it's like they were talking, and then just Eddie was just staring blank-faced at the fucking camera, just waiting. And it's like, it was a disaster. But after that, like, it seems like they pieced it all together pretty good. So that was that fight. I talked about the Jones fight, talked about Adriano Moraes. Now, I will get onto my bets, people. Get onto my bets. So there is a fight this weekend. Kevin Holland is stepping up on a week's notice or 10 days notice or some shit like that to fight Marvin Vettori, who is probably the best fighter coming out of Italia. He is a fucking beast. A lot of people think that Izzy's toughest fight was against Marvin. So I am very pumped up for this fight. I will just go through my bets real quick, and then I'll break down this card, and I'll explain those bets. So, my bets in order from most, I don't know, like, they're in order from worst to best, right? So, number 1, we have the return of Impa Kasanganay. Then he is going to fight Sasha Palanitkov. I think that's how you say that. And I have this bet plus 158 under 2.5 rounds. Oh, and just as like a standard, I get all of my bets from FanDuel. So that's where I get these odds, and all that shit is from FanDuel. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. Obviously, I have like 10 fucking viewers, but hopefully one day that like would be pretty nice. Yeah, so that's my first bet. We have Impa plus 158 to go over under 2.5 rounds. Okay, I fucking messed it up, and like I fucking stuttered. Let's redo this here. So we have Impa Kasanganay versus Sasha Palanitkov plus 158 under 2.5 rounds. Then my next bet is Sam Alvey. Jeez, my stutter is such a pain in the ass, people. Sam Alvey versus Julian Marquez plus 116 to go over 2.5 rounds. And then my last bet not least, is Kevin Holland versus Marvin Vettori. Minus 142 to go over 2.5 rounds. Now, let's just start with my reasoning for the Impa bet. So, Impa is coming off of his first. I'm just trying to pull up his fucking thing real quick. Where the fuck is Impa? Hello. Wow, there's a lot of fights on this card, people. There's 14 fights. Holy shit. And it's stacked to the brim. I'll talk more about this card, but there is a lot of great fights. And my boy, Jorgen De Castro, who grew up in the town over. He literally grew up, 25 minutes down. Well, not grow up because this dude was born like some. When he moved here, he made his base, and this dude is literally like 20 minutes down from where I am. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, Impa Kasanganay. Is he seriously the first fight of the night? Holy shit. But anyways, people, this podcast is fucking terrible. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't have to tell you that at fucking this point. I am a mess. I'm all over the fucking place. But this is Impa's first fight back since that Buckley knockout. And I feel like Impa is going to come back. I mean, now that I'm actually thinking, right? So one of two things. Because when a guy gets knocked out, one of two things happens. He either comes back and he's over aggressive, or he comes back and he's very hesitant. So I don't know which one it'll be, but based off of my bet, I like this fight ending in the before 2.5 rounds, because this dude that he's fighting is honestly a pretty new fighter. He's only had 7 fights, where Impa has only had 9 fights, but Impa has fought a lot better talent. This dude has really only fought two real guys. He fought one dude that was 7-0 in his UFC debut, and then he won that fight, and then the other fight was against a guy who was 7-1, and then he lost that. But anyways, I like this because I don't see either one of these guys lasting. Like, somebody is gonna get a finish here. Somebody's definitely gonna get a finish here. So yeah, like, I feel like I'm not like, I'm trying to phrase that in like a better way, but I mean, that's just what I think. I just think that this fight will get a finish on either side. I see Impa coming back into the win column here, and possibly getting a sub or a TKO. I mean, Impa hasn't finished a ton of fights, but I feel like that's because he's been fighting amazing guys, right? So this guy, I don't think, is up to the caliber of Buckley or a person like that. So anyways, that is my reasoning for that bet. It's dog shit reasoning, but that is my reasoning, people. And then this one I feel better about. So most of the time, I don't like to bet over 2.5 rounds for over 2.5 rounds for 3-round fights, because you're pretty much giving yourself no room to like fuck up. So it's like, this fight pretty much needs to go all 3 rounds or the bet's lost. So most of the time I don't really like that. Like, I like lines that are set in the middle of the fight. But this is not. But the reason why I did this, so it's for the fight to go over 2.5 rounds and it's plus 116, which is pretty good odds, because Sam Alvey has gone to a decision in his last 3 fights, and Julian Marquez, he's gone to the 3rd round or a decision in his last 2 fights. And I think these guys are really good, and I feel like they're both KO punchers, right? They both have a lot of power, but which I feel like that has influenced the line here, because both of these guys have a lot of fucking power, so there's a lot of potential for a finish here. But Sam Alvey, he's a very up and down guy. At this point, he's lost 4 straight. He's been to a decision in his last 2 fights. I think no, 3 fights. Sorry. Oh wow, no. He's lost 4 and has drawn once. So he hasn't won in 5 fights in 3 years. In 3 years and 5 fights, he has not won. So that fight he did win was a decision. He got finished by Nogueira. I didn't even realize that. But yeah, so I think this fight will probably go over 2.5 rounds. I see this being a good fight. I see them both kind of canceling each other out. Both dudes have really good chins. Even though Alvey got knocked out by Jimmy Crute, that's not really representative of his chin. Sam has an amazing chin, and Marquez also has a great chin. So I see these guys kind of duking it out, and them kind of wobbling but not falling. And then I see it going all 3 here. So that's my reasoning for the first 2 bets. And then Kevin Holland versus Marvin. Vettori minus 142 to go over 2.5 rounds. I really like this fight because Kevin Holland's a fucking beast, right? And then Marvin is a fucking beast. So I think both guys are going to have a hard time to get a finish here. Has Marvin ever been finished? Let me look real quick. Nope. So Marvin has never been finished. His 3 losses were a decision, and his last loss was to the champion, was to Izzy, which is a split decision, and there's a lot of people that say that was Izzy's toughest fight. So there's a lot of potential here, and has Kevin Holland been finished? Brendan Allen choked him. I didn't even know he fought Brendan Allen and that he lost to him. What the hell? Okay, so yeah, so Holland has only been finished once, and it was to a choke, and Vettori has never been finished. So these are very tough guys who I see this fight going all 5 rounds. So essentially that's why I put that bet in there. That's my most certain bet. And there was also one more bet that if you wanted to, you know what, I'm actually not going to do it because I do 3 bets and these are my certain locks. So lock them in there. You have Kevin Holland versus Marvin. Vettori minus 142 to go over 2.5 rounds. Then you have Impa, Kasanganay versus Sasha, Palanitkov plus 158 under 2.5 rounds. And then we have Sam Alvey versus Julian Marquez plus 116 to go over 2.5 rounds. Fuck, the Impa fight is under 2.5 rounds. I keep saying over. It's under, okay? So it's plus 158 under 2.5 rounds for the Impa fight. So that is my reasoning for that. Now, I'm running super long, so there's a Bellator. I'm just going to touch on that real quick. It's pretty much Ryan Bader versus Machida for the light heavyweight tournament. There's other fights on that card, but I'll just more talk about it on Monday, and I will review that card. But quickly, Bader, I think Machida's probably, well, no, he's definitely way past his prime. I don't really see him catching Bader here, and that's really the only shot he has of winning, and I see Bader having an utterly dominant fight and then moving on in the tournament. So that's that. I'll talk about that more Monday, and then I just want to quickly go over this card before I have to leave ya. So talked about Jones, I talked about ONE FC, talked about talked about Bellator for a split second. I gave you my bets, and then now I'm going to break down this card, and we could call it a day, people. Even though I will bet my life that there is not one person that has listened up until this point. But if there is, I love you with all my heart. And I'm just going to break down this card really quick in some of my favorite fights. Speaking of, we have Arnold Allen versus Sadiq Youssef. That is the co-main, which, holy fuck, that fight is going to be amazing. Both of these dudes are fucking utter beasts. Deke has insane power, and Arnold Allen is the next great British fighter, right? There's so much hype behind him, and rightfully so. This man has not lost in the fucking UFC, right? He's let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7. He's 7-0 in the fucking UFC, people. That is so hard. That is so hard. And then his last 2 fights was Nick Lentz and Gilbert Melendez. I mean, come on. Come on, dude. So this is going to be a huge fight. If he wins this, he was supposed to fight Jeremy Stevens before COVID. So I don't know what happened there. Oh wait, no. This was during COVID. So like, I don't know if he got hurt or what. I just see the little cancel bout. So if he gets this win, well, I think for both guys, if Deke could get a big win here, or if Arnold can, that I think this is gonna propel them right up that fucking weight class, and they'll probably get a huge fight, and then we'll see. Like this is kind of what I think back to when they had Jones versus Bader. You have 2 up and coming prospects that you could easily see like winning the belt, and it's like, who is gonna outshine who here? So that is an amazing fight. I really love that fight. And then of course we have the Sam Alvey fight. I talked about that. But then the wife of the female GOAT, Amanda fucking Nunes, her wife is fighting Mackenzie Dern, which Mackenzie is a fucking beast, but I feel like she has a lot of hype because she's a part of that Gracie family, kind of. Like, I forgot how that went, but it was like a weird thing where she's like Brazilian, but she's, I don't know. There's just a lot of weird shit that goes on with the backstory. But anyways, I feel like she's got a lot of hype because she's attractive, and any attractive female fighter, they immediately get a lot of hype, which it's not really that fair, because then, like, I just think of like Paige, like actually like Zan, how she was, she got all this hype and they were really pushing her up there, but Paige was like a novice. She just started fighting, right? Like, by the time she got thrusted in to all these huge fights, she had only been fighting for like 4 years or like some shit like that. And then Dern, I feel like it was kind of like the same thing where they kind of just thrusted her up there. So, but I mean, Dern is a little different because her jiu-jitsu is ridiculous. It's really, really good, and she has a background in that, and she was dominating girls, and she was winning a bunch of tournaments. So Dern was like a little different, but it's like the same thing where like these hot girls, they just give them all this hype, and then it's like either sink or fucking swim, and then. But anyways, and then Dern's lost, I think, to Hebus. And then after that, she's on a 3-fight win streak. So this is really going to be who gets the next shot at the... Are these girls fighting at strawweight or flyweight? I think they're fighting at strawweight. So this will definitely propel either one of these girls into the top contendership. because that's a pretty. There's a lot of great fighters, but it's also kind of a weak weight class. So if you could string a few wins, then you could definitely get a shot. And then returning is Mike Perry after punching like an old guy in the face and like almost killing himself by kicking a glass door and slicing his leg fucking open, which so insane how like Mike Perry got no discipline, and this man has been acting like an utter madman for the last like 2 fucking years, man. This dude has been going out of his mind, man. But anyways, he's making his return against Daniel Rodriguez. I don't even think I know who this cat is. D-Rod. His nickname is D-Rod. Oh, 10th Planet. Okay. He's a 10th Planet guy. Lost to Nicholas. What the hell is dude? Dude has had 4 fucking UFC fights. He beat Tim Means. Why do I not know this kid? Maybe I do, and it's just not ringing a bell. What? Okay, yeah, so then this kid's a beast, like it fucking seems like. He lost to Dalby, and then it seems like he's trying to make his comeback here against Mike Perry, which this is definitely his biggest fight. And then Mike Perry is looking to rebound after all of the out-of-cage problems that this dude has dealt with. And then also, he's lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. So, I hope that he can bounce back. Well, I mean, I don't really. I mean, I just want to see this fight, and then but on to the okay, yeah. So oh my god, there's so many. So Jack Shore, we have Jack Shore, which is another massive prospect from the UK. He is from Wales. And then this kid, man, this kid has had a lot of fucking hype. He was Cage Warriors champion. I think this cat's a bantamweight. Yes, he is a bantamweight. So he's been on a 2-fight win streak since he's gotten into the fucking UFC, and he's honestly ran through the first two guys that he's faced. So let's see if Hunter Azure, just the guy that he's fighting, could be more of a challenge to him. Because Jack Shore is looking like a beast, man. He's looking like a beast. So, on the early prelims, that is a name to look out for, is Jack Shore. And then a veteran who is always fun to watch is John McDessie. He has one of the funnest striking styles to watch, man. He's a fucking beast, man. And I don't know what he's been up to. Let's click on John McDessie. Okay, so he lost to Masaranduba, but before that he was on a 3-fight win streak. And then before that he got knocked out by fucking Lando with that crazy wheel kick, man. Where, yeah, I mean, like anybody fucking would have got knocked out by that. So he's looking to bounce back here against Ignacio Bahamondes, where this kid has a lot of hype. There is a lot of prospect with a ton of hype that's on this card, and Bahamondes is making his UFC debut, and really, they're throwing him right to the fucking wolves, because McDessie, for your debut fight, that's a really, really tough fight, man. So I look forward to that, to see what happens in that fight. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then Jim Miller, dude. Jim Miller is still doing the fucking thing, man. I think he has the most subs in the history of the fucking UFC, and I think he's getting up there in most fights too. This man has had almost 30 fights in the fucking UFC. This man has been in the fucking UFC since 2008. Since 2008, which I can recall when Jim Miller was the young gun, and he went on that 8-fight fucking win streak, and then just everyone in the sport, all of the hardcore fans were like, why isn't Jim Miller getting a shot at the fucking title? And then he had a number one contendership fight against Benson, and then he lost that, and then but then he went on to have a storied fucking career, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. And yeah, so he is a grizzled vet that has been here for a while. He's looking to bounce back. He's lost 2 out of his last 3 fights. So yeah, so it'll be good to see what happens, because he's fighting Joe Selecki, who I don't think I know this kid, but he's someone from Contender Series. He beat Matt Wyman. Oh yes, I do know this kid. He beat Matt Wyman. But anyways, people, I feel like I'm fucking rambling. This shit has been terrible. I've been stuttering this entire fucking podcast, and it's annoying. I'm trying to fix that, trying to get a hold on that. But anyways, this podcast is damn near a fucking hour, and I know that there's nobody that's listening to this shit for a fucking hour, but if you are, I love you. You are the shit. Have a great week. I will be back on Monday, and I will see if my bets were dog shit, and I will review both Bellator and the UFC, and I will talk about the next fight after that. I forgot what it is for the UFC, but there's a ONE FC, there's a Bellator. This April is just the month of fights, and then we also have fucking PFL. Oh my god, PFL, people. But anyways, this has been the podcast. I am your host, Tyler Felix. This is Pass the Parsley. And have a great week, people. I love you with all my heart. Deuces.